When Luka wants to end a series, it could certainly feel like there's nothing you can do to stop him. In a closeout Game 5 versus the Timberwolves, he did a number on them to the tune of 25 points in the first half that ended the game way early. If we examine how he did it, it covers all the facets you have to worry about when trying to guard him. The Mavs put him off ball the first couple of possessions, and he turned this cross screen for a handoff into a backdoor cut post-up on the switching and smaller Conley. If you're going to double down from one pass away, it better be a lot more effective than whatever it is Anthony Edwards does as Rudy goaltends the push shot. Next, he's on ball where the Mavericks try to set ball screens as high as possible. If Edwards goes underneath the screen while Luka is going to his left, he'll go to his bread and butter sidestep three-point shot. That gives him enough room to get it off and splash. He doesn't even need a ball screen when his defender is smaller than him. He spends the isolation trying to keep in contact with McDaniels until the red zone and watch the subtle offhand on the hip that doesn't push off but helps Luka stop his own momentum before hitting the wide open 16-footer. If you do try and chase over the top of the ball screen, Luka is an absolute Jedi master of keeping his man in jail, patiently waiting for Lively to get behind Rudy before taking his time on the runner. Luka likes to target the opposing team's big man with hopes of forcing a switch as he calls Lively up to set the screen. What makes him so hard to guard is the guessing game whether he'll shoot or pass, as he lures Rudy to him before lobbing for the dunk. You just can't speed him up. He's always under control, and even when you play drop coverage and do a good job chasing, you'd better be a lot better at recovering to contest than Kyle Anderson is, as Luka is just shooting practice shots out here. More switch hunting as Luka calls Gafford out top to set the ball screen to get Rudy involved. He was already so red hot that pulling from the logo off a hop when Anderson goes under the screen must have seemed easy to Luka. This play was demoralizing and did as much to end the game early as any shot he made. When Anderson tries to force Luka away from the screen, he executes a perfect spin move to leave slow-mo in his dust. Rudy is so worried about the rolling Gafford, he disengages from the more important thing, the ball. So Luka just casually drops this one through the rim. This possession had it all. Luka uses the screen to the left, spin move for another screen to the right, putting his defender in jail versus the drop, and when he gets the switch, takes both defenders to the baseline, stares a hole through Lively, which makes them wander away from the ball before pushing a 10-footer in for a 20-point lead early in the second. The first thing that jumped out at me was when Luka would use a ball screen to his right. He almost always needs to use a big right foot jab step to stop his momentum, then bring that right foot back, get set, and then sling his two-motion shot up to the rim. Watch how the defense would go underneath these screens knowing they'd have plenty of time to recover and contest these shots into misses. It seems clear this was the scouting report on him, as all three teams they played would go underneath on the majority of his pick and rolls to the right side. Interestingly, he shot okay overall when going to the right, although I included a couple where he started out going to his right off the screen but then turned them into straight-on step backs, which is what makes him so tricky to get a handle on. But when I separated out his three-point shot on ball screens to his left, he actually shot worse. These are the sidestepping shots we're so familiar with, but also raise the level of difficulty to a point that makes it clear why he would only make 33% of these in the playoffs. But when we factor in that he shot a godlike 65% in the deep mid-range beyond 17 feet, your only focus on defense has to be to keep him from getting below the three-point line. And that means the Celtics should go under all these screens and fight to get around to contest and rely on him hitting a relatively low percentage. It would go a long way towards eliminating these beautiful possessions where Luka controls every aspect of the play until a defender makes a mistake and he instantly capitalizes. Going under these screens would give the defense enough of a cushion that they could goad him into taking even more than the 7.7 attempts he shot through the first 3 rounds. The craziest stat I saw about the conference finals was Luka's on-off offensive rating. I mean, how is it possible that the Mavericks were 10 points per 100 possessions better with Luka on the bench? Clearly he makes their offense go, and predicting how well he'll fill up the box score is not only fun, but it can win you money by playing Sleeper, the ultimate fantasy sports app. What's cool is that you can set your over-under picks before the game or do it live while it's happening. Just pick at least 2 players and whether they'll get more or less from a host of different stats, and you can win up to 100 times your money. So check out my picks for game 1. I've got Luka a little bit lower on the points, but I've got Jason Tatum a little bit higher on the points. Then we got to go Jaylen Brown. I don't know if he's going to make more than 2.5 threes, and then Derek Lively across the board with all those stats. I think he's going to go lower. And check out how much money you can win. It's really fun, so what are you waiting for? And if you use my code BBALL100, they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $500. There are so many ways to win. It raises the stakes when you watch it, so what are you waiting for? Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. If we examine the OKC series, we see that Luka's numbers weren't that much different than in the conference finals, but he did have a few bad shooting games, and it was clear how the Thunder were throwing him off, as they had Dort pick him up as early as possible, hitting him in the face in the first minute of the game for a foul, making him upset enough that he'd still be complaining about it to his teammates on the bench a few minutes later. In an effort to show the refs how physical Dort is being, he tilts his head back but then directly loses the ball. He complains the whole way down as J-Dub gets to the basket and is fouled, and continues complaining during the free throws, so he's clearly not focused on playing the game. Here he is telling Zach Zarba that Dort is subtly grabbing his jersey when he puts his hand on Luka's waist, and he's still trying to tell him about it while his teammates are busy trying to run their offense. The Thunder continued to put pressure on him, and he started to wilt, complaining the entire time down the court, unaware of his defensive assignment and what is happening with the ball on the right side of the floor. And he just couldn't stop himself as he keeps complaining while Chet shoots his free throw. This type of physicality got him off balance, making unusual plays we don't normally see when he anticipates contact that doesn't come, and it comes to a head as Dort shoves him down in the box out. Luka then pulls Dort down on top of him, and everyone is upset and badly in need of some emotional equilibrium. It was impressive to see Luka battle through the pressure Dort is putting on him to hit this shot, but rather than celebrate a big bucket at the end of the half, Luka is focused on complaining and/or doing the Lord of the Dance routine while heading into the locker room. It's never a bad idea to use body-to-body contact to disrupt a great player and get them off their game, and OKC was able to do this best in Game 4. In a war of attrition, the inexorable bumps, shoves, and trips continue to take their toll as the Mavericks' lead began to dwindle alongside Luka's temper. One thing Dort was doing was grabbing Luka's jersey on his hand checks. It might have been subtle enough that the refs didn't see it, but this can really manipulate the offensive player, and clearly Luka was triggered and willing to take ill-advised shots out of sheer frustration. Dort knew he had him when he gently pushes off in the backcourt, and Luka throws his arms up, doesn't run down to the offensive side, and is completely disengaged as the teams play 4-on-4 and rely on PJ Washington to create a shot. While I'm sure it was a mixture of the pain he felt in his knee, Luka puts his head down and looks less engaged as it again becomes a 4-on-4 match, and Kyrie can't break the tie as the Thunder go on to outscore them down the stretch to take the game. As for how Boston will guard him, they've got a number of defenders they can throw at him, and Jaylen Brown will be at the front of the line. But they're probably going to switch when Drew Holiday is involved, and when they last played, Luka handed everyone buckets all around the court. If it's Derek White on him, Luka's eyes will probably light up since he's too small and not strong enough to stop him in the post. Likewise for Drew Holiday, who is normally a good defender down there, but I don't see him being effective enough to justify starting out a possession on Luka. I can tell you right now that they'll surely target Al Horford as much as possible and expect mucho points from this matchup. And I suspect it won't be that much different against Porzingis, although he is longer and should be able to contest a step back better if and when he actually gets there to contest. I just don't think the Celtics can be so free with their switching philosophy, especially when Peyton Pritchard is out there, since it was him first on Lively and then next on Luka, which will more often than not result in a bucket and maybe even a foul as well. Jason Tatum wasn't immune, and I was surprised at how few opportunities he had to guard Luka in this game, but on this ISO, seeing how Luka can bump him out of the way for the layup means they're going to have to bring help on every drive. Running a traditional drop isn't going to work well enough against Luka, as the Thunder and Wolves have already proven in the playoff season, as White can't stop quickly enough and Luka lights him and KP up for a 3. Their best bet is to pre-switch the pick and roll. Luka calls KP's man up the ball screen. Watch how Drew switches onto him here, forcing the Mavs to pick another ball screener. It should have been PJ Washington, as you can hear the bench call it.
Such halves in the play-by-play.
But Josh Green gets too excited and got up there first. Luka does a vicious spin move for an open three, but just can't hit it. And the Celtics did a better job to switch KP off of Washington again so he can protect the rim by guarding Josh Green in the corner. This was a good defensive possession until White gets mesmerized by Luka's gaze down low towards Lively, instead firing the pass to the left wing for an open look to White's man, who nails the three. Here's that same switch for KP that allows him to stay on the low block to protect the paint, and I'm sure it was one calculation on Luka's part for why he didn't take White to the shed and decided to try a low percentage shot instead. With Luka playing at the top of his game and Kyrie creating at a high level too, I'm just not sure the Celtics can get enough stops to win 4 of these finals games. But if they fight through more screens, switch less, but then pre-switch their bigs out of the high pick and rolls, they'll be able to win. As it is, I don't think you can stop Luka 4 times in a week, and that means Dallas is going to win this series in 6 games.